Yo, it's Derek. Here's a fun fact about me. I'm a big fan of JRPGs. Knowing I'm a fan of them might just lead you to assume that I enjoy the genre-defining Final Fantasy series, and you would be absolutely correct. One issue I have when claiming I'm a Final Fantasy fan, though, is I've only played about 4 of the 19 main games. I'm not saying you have to indulge in every facet of media involving one series you like to say you're a fan. I just have a very hungry worm in my head that can only be satisfied by 100%ing video games I like. To get something out of the way, I'll be playing the pixel remasters of the first 6 Final Fantasy games, as they are the most easily accessible versions of them, even though they may not be the most definitive releases of each game. This might be one of my shorter videos, but the further I get into the Final Fantasy series, the longer each video will take to make. Trust me, I'm dreading my future here. But if you want to maybe help these videos get done a tiny bit quicker, you can support me on Patreon for just $1 a month. You can make that decision after you hear me talk a little bit more though, so keep that wallet tucked away for just a sec. The very first thing that Final Fantasy I wants from you is a choice of party members. And since I just mentioned Patreon, I think it's a good time to also mention that one of the perks on there is being able to name characters in games I play for a video, if they do the whole character naming thing. Anyways, 2 friends who also happen to be investors picked 2 wonderful names each. The Warrior, Dante the Red Mage, Fart Schmink the Monk, and Goofy Goober the White Mage. High class stuff, I know. The game takes a while to say that the world kinda sucks right now and only the 4 Warriors of Light can save it with some crystals they have. After the narrative trauma dumps on me, I received my first major task, saving the Princess of Cornelia from the rogue knight Garland. I might have been a little overzealous in thinking I could take him on before leveling to prepare, but I learned from my mistakes once in a while, so I got some better gear, killed some monsters, took another crack at it.
Who's there? The king's lapdogs. Do you have any idea who you're messing with? You really think you have what it takes to cross swords with me? Very well. I, Garland, will knock you all down!
Garland literally has 1 attack and I'm out of spell slots, so I just set everyone to do their own basic attack until he goes down as quickly as I did last time. As a reward, I get a currently useless loot from Princess Sarah and the repair of a bridge up north. Another wall of text basically just tells me the intro is done and I'm onto the real video game, so it's time to hunt down some fiends and restore power to the 4 crystals. Captain BK and his pirate crew have taken over a town called Provoka. BK seems to have a short fuse because his crew is ordered to start fighting me over just talking to him. As a reward for beating down the 3x3 assortment of goons, I'm given an entire ship and an apology. The first thing I use the ship for isn't actually traveling the sea, but for some weird slide puzzle minigame I can access if I hold A while I press B a lot for some reason. Genuinely, I have no clue why this is a thing or if it's even hinted to be in the game at all, but if I complete it I get a snazzy achievement, so I'm not even gonna question it. With access to sea travel, albeit limited due to geography I'll take care of later, I immediately make my way over to Elfheim to grind for some upgrades to my gear and magic, specifically Dante's first multi-target spell, Fyra. This really just makes encounters with multiple enemies a lot quicker to wrap up, but that is very welcome for an otherwise more tedious process. I stock up on plenty of antidotes so I don't get destroyed by the super fun poison-inflicting enemies I'll be facing in the Marsh Cave. Unlike wallets I just so happen to find, I think it'd be a good idea to return this crown I found in some cave. But hey, that's no royalty, that's Astos the Dark Elf. See, Astos is a bit of a rude dude. He stole a witch's crystal eye and not only stole the Elfine Prince's crown, but also put him into a coma just because he's evil or power hungry or something like that. I don't know man, beating him doesn't even give me an achievement. This fight's too far above my pay grade to talk about. I retrieve the crystal eye, I give the eye back to Matoya the witch, she gives me some brew that cures the Prince of Elfheim, and he gives me a cool key I can use to get some nitro powder way back at Cornelia's castle. Final Fantasy I has a lot of this kind of thing. It's literally just to go here and get the thing so you can get the thing and do this thing or get more things, with some evil scary monster lurking around somewhere from time to time. I can't say it's impressive design, but Square Enix owes its life to this game, so they had something going. For now, there's just one more drop-off point, and that's handing the nitro powder over to some dwarves so they can get rid of some of that pesky geography for me. My first stop out of my still limited options is going to be the decaying town of Melmond for some much-needed white magic for Goofy Goober. I don't want to die as often, while still being able to die here and there if push comes to shove. I also pick up Firaga so Dante can make even quicker work out of groups. Everything's starting to come together spell-wise, and the ease at which I was able to restore the Earth Crystal was definitely helping my agenda. Before I'm able to go deep into the Cave of Earth to do that, though, I have to get the Star Ruby being guarded by a vampire that's been blamed for Melmond's decay. He's light work to and friends, but wouldn't you know it, the decay is still a problem. With this ruby though, I can make my way to the Giant's Cave, and through it there's a sage named Sada that gives me a staff that lets me go deeper into the Cave of Earth. It's finally time to hit one of the 4 major checkmarks I've been given, and the man at the gate is the Lich.
I am he who feeds on the power of Earth. I will not be disrupted by mortal men. I am Lich, Fiend of Earth.
The Lich is at least a little more competent than, say, Garland or Astos, possibly using a couple of spells that can hit all 4 of our friends, including Fyra, Blazara, and Thundara, and even a few that just make the fight a little trickier, like Haste and Sleep, plus Sleepra just in case he's feeling a little extra obnoxious. But overall, he's a joke right now. One of the few white magic spells that can do damage, Dia, or Dia, I don't really know how it's pronounced, man, is powerful but has a single stipulation. It only works on undead enemies. Of course, the big skeleton guy's undead, no need to clarify that. But the damage output from Goofy Goober in this fight is higher than Fartschmeek and Dante. It's genuinely impressive and doesn't really leave room for the Lich to use any of those fancy spells of his before he's beaten and I restore the Earth Crystal. Now, I know that was a lot of build up to the first of the 4 major objectives, but would you believe me if I said I'm already able to fix up the Fire Crystal? Well, you should, because this is my video after all, but I do respect skeptics. Literally the only stop I have to make before heading to the next dungeon is a town called Crescent Lake, where, like every other town I visit, I gear up a bit, but I also get a canoe from one of the old men in the woods. You know, just something that happens to any ordinary person. The same typicalness, I think that's a word, goes for my next destination, the inside of a volcano named Mount Gulg, which just so happens to have the next boss to take down. Marilith actually has less than half of the possible actions the Lich had, with her rarest attacks just being slightly annoying if they land. But her basic attack packs a little more of a punch. Fortunately, my healing is pretty potent now, so all the strength really does is delay her defeat. I think it's a good time to mention that most of my steamrolling during big fights like this comes from the fact that I immediately just pump buffs into my team. Dante covers the offensive with Temper and Haste, and Goofy Goober covers the defensive with Protera, Invisibra, and some type of null spell depending on the fight. Of course, Null Blaze is most effective for Marilith here. Basically every boss or challenging regular encounter flows the same from here on out, the only changes being more potent versions of spells, new gear, yada yada. For now though, Marilith goes down with no hassle, and that's 2 out of the 4 crystals restored. Could you bring yourself to believe me if I said the next crystal is right around the corner just like the last? Well, never trust a YouTuber. There's actually a couple small dungeons I have to clear out before restoring the water crystal's power. First, I've got to squeeze my way into the Cavern of Ice so I can solve a classic falling puzzle, if you call falling through a specific isolated tile a puzzle. After fighting an evil eye, I get the Levy Stone. With this thing that I got in this cave somehow, I can head down to Ryukon Desert and get the one, the only, trademark Final Fantasy airship. Now that the overworld is actually entirely available to me, how about a power spike? Because of my intuition, I know there's a little item in a place called the Citadel of Trials far north that can help me out. The Citadel itself is just a gauntlet of enemies that are kind of hard, I guess? But we've already established that Final Fantasy is a video game made for little babies, so no enemy poses a big threat to me. The item I get as a reward, a rat's tail, obviously isn't impressive on its own, but Bahamut gets some good vibes from it, and who would I be to take that away from him? Each one of our heroes is now a good bit stronger in a few ways. Can now use a select few white magic spells, Dante and Goofy Goober can use more and better spells, but Fartschmeek doesn't really get much outside of being a bit stronger. He does eventually become my strongest party member by far, but for now he just kinda looks a little cooler. I'm bored with interesting side content right now. Thankfully, I'm only a couple steps away from the next Crystal's dungeon. The first of these steps has me going to a merchant at the side of a desert with no visual sign of an entrance being here whatsoever. And let's be real here, I'm not going to talk to NPCs and figure this out for a, 40-year-old game? The reason I'm here in the first place is for a bottled fairy that I need in order to get the Oxy Ale, the item required to enter the Sunken Shrine. This is one of the more packed dungeons in terms of chests to open up, and the only real reason I'm bringing this up right now is because of a vital story item hidden away in here, the Rosetta Stone. Now that the only other noteworthy thing in this dungeon is taken care of, it's time to take care of the Kraken. Too bad this fight is so much of a joke that I'm not even going to bother getting a voice for him, and I'm not even going to talk about him. He has 2 attacks, they're basically nothing to me. I got it. It's done. It's done. After that sorry display of a boss, the trip to the next should be a quick and easy one. I need to enter the Flying Fortress, but wouldn't you know it, I can't until I knock out a couple tasks. I gotta go north of the Sunken Shrine's hometown to get a warp cube from a mummy, learn an ancient language in seconds from a guy in Melmond who just learned it himself with the Rosetta Stone I gave him, go to Lufania so I can get a chime to enter the Mirage Tower, head on up that bad boy, and upon entering the next dungeon, I've discovered the last unique area the game has to offer, the Flying Fortress. Before I reach the last fiend, I have a couple things I want to do first. For one, on the 3rd floor I can find some very useful adamantite that I'll be using later. This fortress also happens to house an enemy called Warmech. This shiny red fella doesn't really have any narrative or achievement related significance. Honestly, I'm just mentioning it for being arguably the first example of a super boss. No, I would not say Warmech is stronger than the final boss, but outside of that, Warmech is overpowering almost every other enemy in the game. It only has 2 possible attacks, and for some reason they let it flee if you get unlucky, I guess. But with one of them being called Nuke, you can imagine it's putting up some nasty numbers. Fortunately, my party is an overwhelming force, so this is more of a road bump that gives a lot of XP. Thank you for giving us Sephiroth in Kingdom Hearts, Warmech. You will be missed. Okay, time for the main attraction, Tiamat. Wow, a moveset that isn't shorter than the last. My end of this fight is the same as it has been, just buff up and let and Fart Schmink do the talking, but Goofy Goober is actually a decent hitter now with Holy, a white magic spell that does damage to any enemy, not just the undead. Still not quite as strong as Mr. Schmink's punches, I mean, nothing is, but Goofy Goober's trying. Before Tiamat dies, I want to mention that Thunderbolt is the only possible threat and it still only does a third of Dante's HP, so really why do I even bother? With the 4 crystals restored, I now have access to the last area. But what would any JRPG be without a to-do list before the ending? First thing I want to do is check on those dwarves that helped me way back when. I can use that adamantite here by giving it to the blacksmith to create Excalibur, the best sword in the game. Of course, is going to be the one to use it, so he isn't as far behind Fart Schmink in damage. You can also get achievements for both opening every chest in the game and encountering every enemy. There are achievements for milestones here as well, but there's not much of a point in talking about them if I'm going to bring up the ones for absolute completion. Getting every chest is really not bad, even without a guide. The Pixel remasters actually keep track of how many chests you have opened out of how many there are in each given area's map. The same general idea goes for the Bestiary. For one, you can access the Bestiary at any point outside of combat you'd like, and 2, you could also just look up where certain entries are if you don't know a monster can only be fought on one of the 5 or so floors of a dungeon. Looking at you, Warmech. Okay, I think it's time to enter the final dungeon. Poetically, it's actually the Chaos Shrine from the very beginning of the game, but now I can be sent 2,000 years in the past to hunt down Chaos itself. The Chaos Shrine is similar to most other dungeons, as it's lacking in gimmicks or generally notable qualities, but it does have you refight all 4 fiends from throughout the game. They may have some different attacks and better stats, but between the 2 unstoppable forces, and Fart Schmink, paired with the potent support of Dante and Goofy Goober, all 4 of them go down just like the battles that take place 2,000 years later. I also managed to hit level 50 with my entire party one encounter before the final battle.
Do you remember me? I was once the most renowned knight of Cornelia. 2,000 years from now, you killed me. I am Garland. Oh, you did defeat me then. But the 4 great forces saved me by sending me back through time. Once here, I sent the 4 fiends into the future, where they shall once again use the 4 great forces to send me into the past. In 2,000 years, I will remember none of this. But I will be reborn again here. So even as you die and die again, I shall return. Born again into this endless cycle that I have created.
Chaos. Finally, an actual challenging fight. Chaos has an arsenal of different attacks, and his stats definitely back that up well. Having the highest HP total in the game will also force me to stay fighting for a little longer than I'd like. And if he wants to, he could just heal himself for 9,999 HP and sent me back by a few turns. This is really the fight that solidified Fart Schmink as my champion, consistently dishing out more than and Dante combined, even with his fancy new Excalibur. There's a reason Fart Schmink is the main character of the thumbnail, as well as the main character in my heart. Chaos would have been a lot scarier as a fight if he actually used more of his rarer attacks, but the worst I saw was Blizzaga like one time, and similarly to Warmech's problem, it barely does a fourth of Dante's HP each hit. I mean, maybe I'm a little overtuned, maybe the buffs are just that good. It's probably a mix of both, let's be real here, but after turning him into a punching bag, Chaos goes down and Final Fantasy 1 is done. This truly was a Final Fantasy. While not being a masterclass of storytelling or gameplay, especially in the modern day, it's impossible to deny the importance of Final Fantasy 1 on a cultural level. Sure, the name's been worn out by now, considering we're on the 16th finale of a fantasy, but I am incredibly glad that this series is where it's at for both the games themselves and how many things have been made because of the series' existence. Chrono Trigger and Xenogears are games that immediately come to mind. But really, who knows just how much would have never been made without the influence of Final Fantasy? Before this video ends, I want to make it clear that I will not be making videos on Final Fantasy games back to back until I'm done. For one, I think it would be incredibly boring for me to make so many videos on the same series in a long row, and boring as a viewer or even a fan, to see nothing substantially different for a long period of time. I also just don't expect these videos to do all that well, honestly. Anyways, as I said earlier, I have a Patreon if you want to pay me for talking to my computer. That and some other links are in the description. I'll see you in the next video.